Welcome back to week 2 of Behind the Paw here at Frostburg State. Today, talking to women's soccer head coach Brian Parker, who's entering his 19th season at the helm of the program. So when did you know that you wanted to be a head coach of a soccer program?
Well, probably maybe even in high school. It turns out I come from a long line of salesmen and people that can talk a lot and present ideas, I guess. And so I had a great mentor and a high school coach at Broadneck in Annapolis, and Kevin McMullen was a real role model for me, and someone that really piqued my interest in sports and in coaching, and that was probably it. Obviously, when I was in college, I got an opportunity to do some volunteer coaching here at Frostburg, and so that really solidified my interest in coaching and teaching. I really think coaching is just obviously I view myself as an educator. I just get to coach something really cool like soccer. So it's been a long time, but it did kind of hit me probably third year in college that I really wanted to take teaching seriously and leave open the opportunity to maybe be a full-time coach.
Coming right out of college, you had an opportunity as a graduate assistant with the West Virginia men's program. Can you talk us through how that came about and what you learned from that experience?
So I decided, like a lot of people do, to kind of hold off my potential real career to see if I could be a coach. And so I went to graduate school to study political science, and that was really my interest, was in public policy, and I actually was studying higher education policy. And I said, well, let me see if I can find a GA somewhere. And I looked at nearby state schools, Penn State, Delaware, Maryland. WVU had a program that basically was happy to have a goalkeeper coach and had a program academically I really liked. So I actually waited a year to start there and got another degree here at Frostburg, and then went there and worked with Paul Marco and John McGrath and learned a tremendous amount of invaluable experience. A lot of things I did like and maybe didn't like about college sports, especially at the Division I level. So it was a fantastic experience.
You also were a helping hand in starting up, back then it was known as Frederick United Soccer Club, now known as Frederick FC. How did that come about? What led you to forming an entire club program?
So when I arrived in Frederick to take the Urbana coaching and teaching position, which I was very fortunate to even earn that opportunity, frankly, I was only part-time. The school didn't fully open. It only opened with 1 grade instead of 2, and so they couldn't give me a full-year contract the first year. So I was looking to make ends meet and started doing kind of private training and trying to do hourly training and finding teams to train. So I just scoped out the whole region and immediately realized that there was a absolute need for a coordinated sort of countywide club in Frederick. There were teams from different high school districts that were, they used the phrase playing down the road, in Frederick, to go down into Montgomery County and closer to the city. So they were calling themselves even different club names. Closer to the suburbs, but we're still Frederick-based teams. So I got together with a few of the coaches who were also kind of young and had a lot of energy and said, hey, let's just unify this effort, and we called it Frederick United for that reason. So it was a natural evolution. I'm sure it would have happened, at some point, probably was attempted maybe in the past. I don't know the history of it, but we got a hold of that and managed to, in some way professionalize it and really have a board that was made up of soccer people, make soccer decisions and hire coaches and evaluate teams. And so still today, I'm very proud of the fact that it's a more legitimate club in terms of having that vertical leadership and integration. And that started, quite a while ago with Frederick United.
Now, obviously coaching with the West Virginia men's team and then founding up FC Frederick. You've coached men and women both. What are the differences between those two and how they respond to your coaching style?
So I'm not sure how much time you have here today to discuss it. Obviously, fantastic books and lots of literature out there about gender differences. It became my preference to coach females pretty early on. I just think there's a willingness to put the team first, and sort of sacrifice your individual needs to be a part of something. And I'm sure that's how there's, a lot of females are socialized perhaps compared to males. When I coached men, every day's a battle. It's a battle of wills, a battle of egos. You've got to constantly press, and constantly monitor everything they're doing. Women tend to be a little bit more self-starters, and like I said, have a little bit more of a tendency to be unselfish and care about other people. They interpret information significantly better and more than males do in terms of body language and even how you look and how you use your language. So there's a lot of things I like about it. Some would say it's more challenging because of that sort of sensitivity and kind of extra, kind of enhanced ability to communicate and interpret things. But I've enjoyed it a lot. I think it's been very rewarding.
Speaking of differences, you've coached at the high school, club, Division I, Division II, Division III level. What are some of the differences that you've noticed in between each of those levels of coaching?
Well, it's pretty, I always say when I do some coaching here and I do some teaching here in our coaching minor I have over the last few years, and I always say that, the importance of winning and getting results kind of increases at every level. And of course, when you get to the professional level, when you're getting paid on a contractual basis to deliver success, in a professional program, it determines your livelihood, whether you win or lose games. But trying to take that competitive necessity out of youth sports and just make it about fun and time on the ball, and that competitive spirit obviously is there and is going to be natural. But I really enjoy working with youths who, are still kind of naive and still learning how to be competitors and how to do it in a healthy way. So I've enjoyed my youth experiences quite a bit, actually.
We've seen in recent years especially the growth of the U.S. national soccer teams, both for the men's and the women's side. Have you noticed any changes within the youth soccer programs as the national teams have come to the forefront?
So it's great to be in this country in so many ways. I think we all agree with that. We have a pluralistic, capitalistic country where we're trying to organize youth sports and be competitive on a global scale. And so a lot of people think they know how to do it. And a lot of people don't like to be told how to do it. So you have 50 states and 50 state associations, and every state has 50 clubs or more. And so there's all kinds of perspectives out there. The great thing about the national team programs is that they provide a unifying voice and a unifying message, and it really is awesome to bring the country together in all sports when we compete in Olympic Games and things like World Cups, and I think that's fantastic. I think that we obviously had a head start because of Title IX on the women's side and the college game on the women's side, and we've been able to really deliver a high-level environment for females much sooner than lots of countries. Obviously, they're catching up big time. We know that. We've not won all the World Cups and Olympic gold medals. We've stumbled a little bit when some of those teams have really shown their commitment and investment really in the women's game. So I think it's been interesting to kind of compare the two genders and how it's maybe a little more frustrating on the men's side to face this, fantastic organized effort in these other countries that had not quite been there on the women's side. So I don't know if that's a fairness issue. I don't really look at it that way. I think we're now providing lots of resources to both genders, and I think it's just fantastic that we have a very successful women's program and wonderful role models, without question. Our players pay attention to those girls at the professional level, those professional national team players, and obviously there's fantastic role models. And you see them on TV, and they get to make a living because they're on TV and getting endorsements, and that's just fantastic for female players everywhere.
You've had a very strong record here of coaching up some great academic All-Americans and academic All-Conference nominees. What do you look for when you're trying to get these players to focus on their academics? Do you recruit players to be academically sound to this program?
So, of course, there's some of both, of course. We want to recruit players that we know to be highly committed, hardworking, focused. Soccer has a way of attracting those kinds of athletes, and so some of it maybe is kind of a chicken and egg thing, right? I think soccer players tend to be pretty sharp and pretty committed around their schools and clubs. Certainly in Maryland they are. But of course, I just love the game. I'm passionate about what I do. I love the game. The favorite hour of my day every day is to go out and start my practice with this team, and it should be their favorite hour. And I think if we just have that contagious enthusiasm about what we're doing and commitment to what we're doing and really being our best and doing the best with what we have available to us, then I think that good things are going to happen. And that's just a very basic philosophy I think lots of coaches have.
You've been through a lot of seasons here, some winning, some losing, all in between. So what defines success for you within a season? Is it the wins and losses? Is it being academically successful with your players? Is it just playing good soccer?
So I often say that the most rewarding thing that happens to me as a coach is when I get invited to the weddings. You know, when the players leave here with such a positive feeling about their experience here as a soccer athlete that they care enough about the coach to think about them later in their life. Whether it's a graduation invitation or a wedding invitation, I think that's really the message that I think I've had an impact on someone. I think if you measure success as a coach by the score on the scoreboard every single time, you're not going to last very long. Obviously, we are trying to get the most we can out of our players and maximize their talents. And obviously, there's X's and O's and matchup things you get to consider. But at the end of the day, you need to walk off the field feeling good about your energy and your effort and how positive you were with the teammates. The things you can really control. And I think if you are really getting the most out of your players and you have prepared them, obviously physically and tactically, to really not be surprised by anything the opponents are doing, I think you're going to have a lot of success. There's chemistry things, and we haven't had every single recruiting class filled with all conference players. I mean, we've experienced some ups and downs and some variability. Of course, they're humans, and it's soccer, and soccer, I think, is probably one of those sports where the quality of the teams is least reflective of the scoreboard than maybe in any sport. You can do everything right in soccer and be bad for 5 seconds and lose a game 1-0 over 90 minutes. So that kind of intensity and pressure and focus that's required on the field, that's not always easy to come, but we've been able to develop a pretty good level of success here over time, and I'm very proud of our players and our alumni.
One final question here. What's been the most rewarding thing for you as a coach, and what's been the most challenging thing for you after all your years of coaching?
Well, I always say that the worst day to be a coach for any coach at any level is when you have to make decisions about your roster. Whether you're cutting players or you're making decisions about who's going to be in or out of the lineup. And you've got to sort of deliver some maybe less than optimal news, some disappointing news to players. And that's always the most difficult thing to do. And so I think about that, and I think about players that have had struggle here academically. We've had 2 or 3 players that have not turned out to be great students for whatever reason, and I think about that all the time. What could I have done differently to motivate them, to develop them a little bit better if they weren't a successful student here? So it's hard to bat 1,000 in competitive sports and whatever you do. We went through a stretch there where we won 16, 17 games a year for 3 or 4 years and won some conference titles, and that was a tremendous amount of fun, and those players have great experiences from that. But it's the relationships. One of the most rewarding things that happens to me now is I get a text message from an alumni who maybe is coaching somewhere, and she's just thanking me because there was something I did that she remembered that she's using with her team. And so those kind of conversations and connections I have with alumni actually are very important to me. And that's when I kind of feel like I made an impact on someone. So even today, those things are I make note of those things.
Coach, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. Obviously, it helps us out a lot with not a lot of content to cover, so we really appreciate you being here. Join us next week on Behind the Paw when we cover Frostburg State's newest sport, acrobatics and tumbling. This is Logan Walsh signing off. Thank you for watching.